just stop.
Finally here, drum roll. Welcome to DBL. I'm Erica in for Sam. I'm here with my brother Al and the good sis Lindsay Granger joining us from home. Hey, girl.
How's it going, guys?
Well, it's always a good day when we can all be here together, you know what I mean?
Linz, I was going to say before we started, I could hear in my earpiece you telling Colin that you could hear Kinsley, and if that baby cries, it's fine. It gives ambiance to the show. Everybody likes to hear a baby.
She wasn't even crying. She wasn't even crying. She's like watching this show called Color Crew, and she's like hysterically laughing, but she has like this high-pitched laugh scream, and I'm like, it sounds like we're torturing her right now.
All right, understood.
Well, we keep it real on this show, and as you can see, it's a very special day here at DBL. Today, we are honoring the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and celebrating his legacy. Now, Dr. King was a pioneer for nonviolent activism and sparked a movement that continues to this day. And to start, we're going to talk about what this day means for us, given that we saw so much unrest in the world last year and in 2020. But I also want to really talk about us, like as a team, because so much has changed since this time last year. For instance, Lindsay, you're a new mom. What lessons will you teach your daughter about this past year?
I just think the dream of equality is something that we can always realize. That's something that Dr. King fought strongly his whole life for. And when I look at her and look at the opportunities, like knowing that Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in this country, there are so many. And so constantly we're bombarded with like negative news. But I know for my daughter that I'm going to constantly let her know that she can be whatever she wants to be. We're going to both work together to make her dreams happen. And I hope that I can be an inspiration as I continue to work hard towards my goals for her. And it's exciting to have a little person in your life looking up to you and knowing that you have to just kind of like mind what you do and how you act, and your integrity has to be on point because you have somebody looking up to you. And I think that's something that Dr. King lived by. And so that's a good person to look up to as I continue this journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Lindsay, just really quickly, as I was looking at those pictures of you with your daughter, I was thinking 50 years ago, you would have been holding her and loving her, but knowing that even though you wanted the best for her, there were limits, there were ceilings. The idea of a Black female CEO was probably not a realistic option in 1970, 1975. But now, as you hold Kinsley, really, I honestly, as you were talking, I couldn't think of one thing that I honestly don't think that I expect her to do and that she cannot do. And that is a difference, and that's what Dr. King wanted. So I think it's a big deal, and we should not just slide past it.
I also think as we look at this year, like I was talking about the news, we did lose a lot of people in the last 2 years, like Ahmaud Arbery, his killer, Derek Chauvin, was held accountable for George Floyd. So we lost Black men and women. Breonna Taylor has still never received justice. So there are these stories that we constantly hear that are heart-wrenching. And even though we're starting to see some justice in these situations where they're murderers and killers, we can call them by that name, are being put behind bars, something important for me is to continue that fight towards justice, because, you know, the real justice would be if they all could be alive today. But we are seeing that people are being held accountable. And so I think accountability for me is a big word for 2022.
You know, every year that we do this show, and obviously so much happens within a year, but it's not only the growth for us as a team, it's us for the growth that we have witnessed and spoken about, you know, quite transparently for us as a nation. And the idea that the three of us sit here and do this show on mainstream media is not lost on me, that this is not something that our parents would ever have seen. So it's just so special, and the idea that we can really be honest about what we're feeling and how we've evolved in the past year is really important.
Absolutely.
You know, Dr. Martin Luther King often talked about taking a stand and the need for courage. So we wanted to highlight two people for their acts of bravery this year. First, Simone Biles, who got us all talking about the importance of mental health and looking after yourself when she withdrew from some Olympic events in Tokyo, even though many criticized her decision to do so. And to Mr. Eugene Goodman, who bravely led a mob of protesters at the Capitol away from the Senate chambers, possibly saving lives. I want to go back to Simone because I was watching on a show that I was binging, and they said 2022 is the year that Black women, you know what? We don't have to be strong all the time. There's this cliche because it's been rooted in so much history that there can't be a moment of weakness because we can't afford to be weak. And I don't find what Simone Biles did to be a moment of weakness. I think it was a moment of really being in touch with what she was feeling and giving herself the grace that so many people have been afforded, but for Simone Biles has never been afforded.
Absolutely. I think what we saw come to a head, and I don't know if you guys took this from that moment, what we saw come to a head is I feel like we saw obviously the Black female mindset, but also the millennial mindset come in as well. She might be younger than millennial at this point, but younger folks look at mental health differently than people my age. I'm 44, and that whole, hey, tough through it, you have a bad day, keep your chin up. Those are great platitudes, but when you're dealing with a medical issue that happens to involve your brain, Lindsay and Erica, that's not going to help. Platitudes do not help. And I feel like she was the first person to say on the world stage, I am not in a good place right now. I don't care who knows it. I need to make sure that I am in a healthy place so I can proceed forward. And that took more courage that I don't know if I've ever seen before. In front of the entire world. So, and
I always tell people it's hard to pour into someone else's cup when your cup is empty. And so a lot of times Black people and Black women too are not able to take that minute just to take a deep breath because we feel like society has placed the burden, like Erica was saying, of strength on us that we constantly have to pretend like everything's okay. And so to see her at this young age and be at the climax of her career and to take a minute for herself is something that everybody can live by because like you were saying, Al, a couple of years ago, or even in my lifetime, in my parents' lifetime, saying that you wanted to go to a therapist was not even a comfortable conversation. So the fact that we're there and we can all have that conversation casually is just a really beautiful thing.
Not only was it not comfortable, but a lot of us grew up in households where it was told that therapy wasn't for Black people.
Absolutely.
So developing that narrative and being open and honest about that is only going to do the healing that we so deserve. So I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate both of you. And coming up on DBL, he made history as the youngest African-American elected to public office. We talked to Bakari about how he's teaching the next generation to dream big. But first, the smash hit My Girl went platinum, and it's all thanks to this guy. We're looking back at our conversation with the founder of The Temptations, Otis Williams, next.
Results of the rapid test, it can look like this if it's positive. The line can sometimes be bold, but other times you have to hold it up to the light just to see it. Now, does that mean you have less virus or are less contagious? Our experts verified it's hard to tell. Let's verify. Does the faintness of a line on an antigen test tell you anything about how contagious you are or if the virus is on its way out? To find out, we went to 3 testing experts, Dr. Amish Adalja and Dr. Gigi Granval, both from Johns Hopkins University, and Dr. William Maurice from the Mayo Clinic. They all agree.
If your test is positive, irrespective of the faintness on an antigen line, you should consider yourself contagious and infected.
So what does the faintness of the positive line mean?
There's a lot of reasons why that line could be faint. One could be you don't have much virus in there. Another could be poor reactivity. Another could be poor specimen.
Like you're positive, you're still producing virus. So it's interesting, but does it make a difference? We don't know exactly how much virus you need to transmit to somebody else.
So let's bring it all home. Basically, all our experts agreed. The faint line could mean you have less virus, but we don't know. The tests aren't designed to measure viral loads. They also could be faint because of a problem with the test, either from a bad test or user error. So to be safe,
if you're positive, treat it as a positive, irrespective of how bright or faint it is. And think of it as positive until it is unequivocally negative.
So we can verify, no. Our experts say the faintness of the line doesn't tell you much. The key point was that 2 years in, we still don't know how much virus is needed to be contagious. Even if you're only a little sick, we don't know if that still delivers heavy loads of virus to the next person. With Verify, I'm Matt Gregory.
Welcome back to DBL. Our next guest is a New York Times best-selling author and political commentator on CNN. He was also the youngest African-American to be elected to serve in the South Carolina state legislature at just 22 years old. Now he's out with a new kids book that is just perfect for today. We got a chance to speak with him earlier. Take a look. Bakari Sellers, welcome to DBL.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to talk to y'all this morning. Thank you so much on this great day.
Man, brother, the honor is all ours because we've been following you forever. I'm so proud of all the work that you've been doing, all the work you will continue to do. So I'm really excited about this new book because I have nieces and nephews, and this is on the docket. But first, what does today, MLK Day, mean to you, and what do you do to really honor it?
So for me, it's not just about King. It's about all of those individuals, the grassroots and the grass tops, which many paid the ultimate price, some of which shed blood, some slept on jailhouse floors, but they were activists. They paid that price so that we could be here today. And so today I think about Medgar Evers and Jimmy Lee Jackson. I think about Sarah Mae Fleming and Rosa Parks. Today, I think about Julian Bond and Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker. I celebrate all of those individuals today and try to lift them up and teach individuals that it's not just Martin, Malcolm, and Rosa, but there's so many people who contributed to the successes, the struggle, and inspire me and it should inspire us all on a day like today.
Can I just add to that, your father, Cleve?
I was about to jump in there. Yes, your dad slept on some of those jailhouse floors as well.
Yes, and also the late, great Bob Moses. So I just want to throw those names out there, too.
And my dad, of course, he was shot February 8th of '68 in the Orangeburg Massacre. And I say the blood of my family literally runs through the soil of this great country. Bob Moses, just a hero, man. It's, you know, we're talking about this book, but even more importantly, a lot of our heroes are dying. And, you know, just last week, being able to see Andy Young and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton all together with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I mean, we have to give people their flowers while they're living. And today is a day where we can honor those that have both passed and those who are still living.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your new children's book. Who Are Your People? It's all about a father explaining to his kids the history of the people that came before them. So why do you think it was so important to write this?
To be completely honest and respectfully, I was tired of my kids seeing blue and purple people change the world. I wanted them to see images of themselves. The representation is so important. I wanted them to be able to have a sense of pride about where they come from. But even more importantly, it encourages you to dream. When you learn about the strength, the struggle, the triumph that we as a people have had, it's so much to learn from, but it also helps you recognize that you stand on such broad, tall shoulders that help you see forward for miles, help you see things that otherwise would be unseen and compel you, which is why we ask the question on the last page, how will you change the world? So whether or not you're a parent reading it or a child who is being read to, hopefully you're inspired to go out and do just that much more to change the world.
So let's take that to your book. Your twins inspired your book. So what do you hope other children that read it, what do you want them to take away from it?
Well, I think black and brown kids will get a sense of pride. I think white kids will get a sense of understanding. I think in this country, we have an empathy deficit because we refuse to take time to learn about others' struggle. And at the end, to inspire. I think that when you set a level of expectation, a high level of expectation for young people, which we attempt to do in this book, then they can achieve and excel and exceed that level of expectation that you have and do great things.
The empathy deficit, that is a whole word
That's
that can
the title
be applied.
Of his next book.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be looking out for that one as well. Bakari Sellers, thank you so much for joining us on DBL. And you can get Bakari's new book, Who Are Your People, now wherever books are sold. Bakari, it has been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
On January 7th, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Rochelle Walensky was interviewed by ABC's Good Morning America. Now, a quote from the discussion is being widely shared on social media, including a tweet from Donald Trump Jr. claiming 75% of COVID deaths were in people with at least 4 comorbidities. So let's verify. Was CDC Director Rochelle Walensky referring to all COVID-19 deaths when she said 75% of deaths were in people with 4 comorbidities? Walensky was quoted responding to a question about whether COVID-19 vaccines are effective enough for us to start rethinking how we live with the virus. Journalist Cecilia Vega cited a CDC study when framing her question, but that was left out of the original broadcast. Walensky answered by citing a study of more than 1 million vaccinated people.
A study of 1.2 million people who were vaccinated between December and October and demonstrated that severe disease occurred in about 0.015% of the people who were received their primary series, and death in 0.003% of those people. The overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities. So really, these are people who were unwell to begin with.
It showed only 1 in every 30,000 actually died, and of those, 75%, or 28 people, had at least 4 comorbidities. However, the broadcast cut off the first part of her answer, leaving the quote out of context. So, it's false that CDC Director Rochelle Walensky was referring to all COVID-19 deaths when she said 75% of deaths were in people with 4 comorbidities. The interview was originally aired out of context, which led to misleading tweets. ABC has since released its entire interview with Walensky. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Welcome back to DBL. The Temptations were known for bringing the Motown sound to the masses with hits like My Girl and Ain't Too Proud to Beg. Here's a look back at our chat with baritone legend and Temptations founder himself, Mr. Otis Williams. Take a look. How you doing?
I'll bow down to you all this time. Oh, I'm fine. How you guys doing?
We're good. I'm sorry I sung over that.
Yeah, you should apologize for that.
Okay, I apologize, sir.
Y'all should start a group. You sound good.
Otis is too kind.
Yeah, the non-Temptations. Okay, after 60 years of making music, Otis, you're still touring, even now. So I wanted to know for you, what is it like performing now in 2021 versus back in the 60s? Is the crowd different? Talk to me.
I must say the crowd is really they're very intelligent about what's happening in show business. When we started out during the 60s, just us being on the stage, they would go crazy. But now they are more in tune. Oh, yeah, they phoning it in, so they can tell if we're faking the funk, which we don't fake the funk, We give it to them because we know they're very knowledgeable and intuitive about what's happening today.
Smart.
Well, Mr. Williams, I just want to say on behalf of myself and my colleagues, we all came to see you, Otis.
Yeah!
Okay.
You know what? I thank you for that because I asked Leon about that. He said, Otis, Leon was the guy that played David Ruffin. Mm-hmm. He said, that was an improv. He said, the scene was going so good, I just threw it in. I said, yeah, but Leon, we were at my play in New York, and it was packed. So the people were saying, Otis. And I said, hey, Leon, they came to see me now. Look, and he said, you got me.
Okay, that's right. You let them know because just to put it to context for people who are living under a rock somewhere, ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis, is a classic line from Temptations and the movie, or I should say. And how did you feel about that when it went so incredibly viral?
Well, I almost met it with mixed emotions, but when you're dealing with the public and things can just really go haywire, and I looked at it as fun of it. Even now when we're on stage, I said, well, they said ain't nobody coming to see you. And I said, yeah, but look at everybody in here now.
Exactly.
And they would applaud. So I turned it into a joke.
That's beautiful. You're the last surviving member of the original lineup. So what is it like performing next to this generation of Temptations? And do you ever have flashbacks to the old days while on stage?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Classic Five will always be remembered. And the guys that's helping me carry the banner now, I adore them because they know they're stepping in the legendary shoes that was there before they came along. So they're doing a marvelous job, and I'm very happy with the guys that I have now.
All right, I have to ask this question. It's a very serious question. Which Temptations member was most popular with the ladies?
I get asked that all the time.
Do you?
Well, I must say Sweet Eddie. Sweet Eddie Kendricks, because he was tall, nice looking, and he had a beautiful tenor voice. And then I must say Melvin Franklin, because Melvin had that deep, profundo bass, and he was such a gregarious personality. They loved to hear Melvin talk, you know. So we kind of, David and Paul and myself, we kind of took second seats compared to those two. But nevertheless, we all got paid the same money, so it wasn't that much difference.
Hey, I'm sure there was equality all around.
That's right.
All around. Yeah.
Well, there's a musical coming out about you and the Temptations called Ain't Too Proud. So what's it like watching your life played out on stage?
You know, when I first saw it up in Berkeley, I was moved to tears. So when we did it in New York on Broadway, so as I'm sitting in the audience, so they're looking at the play, but I found them doing like this here, crane necking to see if I'm showing emotions and whatever. And I would look and I said, yeah, I'm crying too, because to see my life story being portrayed, it touched. You know, it's not all about the dancing and the choreography. There are some very serious moments in there where I started losing members and disagreements. So it's got depth, not only from the music possibilities, but from the actual life that we live.
Otis, I just have to say what a pleasure it is that you're here today. Thank you for being here. But we want to get to your new album, The Stories Otis Has. Wow. I wish I could go out to dinner with you. What is the new album called, and what makes it so special, Otis?
Well, it's called 60. The Temptations has been around for 60 years. And the first single from that CD is written by my friend, one of the best lyricists of all time, Smokey Robinson. And the name of it, is it going to be yes or is it going to be no? Where touching is heard. So it's very sexy.
Nice.
Especially when you said it.
What he said, I was like, okay, dim the lights, everyone.
Can we play out?
I gotta go. That sounds amazing. Oh my gosh.
I wish we had more time.
I know. What a pleasure. Otis, thank you so much for chatting with us. And congratulations on 60 years of the Temptations. What a life well lived. And for everyone at home, you can share in the celebration by checking out their new album on temptationsofficial.com. You can even buy tickets for their musical Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Time of the Temptations. My whole family's going to go. We'll be right back. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
We came to see you, Otis. We came to see
Thank you, guys. Beautifully done. Thank you. We love you guys. Thank you very much.
Take care.
If you made a New Year's resolution, it's still probably too early to know if it's become an actual habit yet. For years, people have said that it takes 21 days to build a habit. But is that true? Let's verify. Our sources for this question: Jackie Greco, a licensed clinical mental health counselor with Sun Counseling and Wellness, and a study on habit forming done by Philippa Laley. The thought that it takes 21 days to build a habit goes back decades.
That is actually a myth that came from the 50s when a plastic surgeon wrote a paper about when patients are getting used to looking at their new face after they've received plastic surgery, and how he noticed that it took an average of 21 days for an old mental image to dissolve and for a new image to take place, which then I think was misinterpreted and rolled with to become the idea of being, 21 days of completing a task. That means that you've built a new habit.
The study by Philippa Laley took 96 volunteers and investigated the process of forming a habit. The volunteers chose an eating, drinking, or activity behavior to carry out daily in the same context for 12 weeks. Each day, they recorded whether they carried out the behavior. 82 of the participants provided sufficient data for analysis.
What she found was that on average, it takes about 2 months or 66 days before a new behavior becomes automatic. For some people, it took as little as 18 days. For some people, it took as much as 254 days to form a new habit.
There is no one reason for why it takes some people longer and some people shorter to form a habit. Instead, Greco says there are a variety of reasons.
It really depends. It depends on the behavior itself that you're trying to change. It depends on the person. And it depends on the circumstances that are both in and out of people's control when they're trying to change.
The study found missing one opportunity to perform the behavior did not affect the habit formation process. Greco agrees.
When we are only focused on the goal of whether or not we completed that task, what we're not focusing on are building those conscious behaviors and processes to make sure that we're actually incorporating a new habit into our daily life.
So we can verify that no, it doesn't always take 21 days to form a habit. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
The annual deadline for Americans to file their taxes is typically on or around April 15th. However, for the past 2 years, the IRS has pushed the tax filing deadline past April because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Amid the current surge of Omicron, it's clear that COVID-19 is still impacting a lot of people. So let's verify. Is the IRS pushing the tax deadline again this year? We went to these sources for an answer. In a January 10th press release about the tax filing season, the IRS confirmed this year's deadline is April 18th, and there's no indication that that will change. That date was also confirmed by TurboTax and CPA Practice Manager, a resource magazine for accounting and tax professionals. According to the IRS, April 18th is also the deadline for individuals to request an extension. If the extension request is granted, their new deadline would be October 17th. With your Fast Fact, I'm Adiande Till.
Welcome back to DBL. We love sharing your comments. A lot of you are writing in about Dr. King. Darren says, my favorite MLK quote is, "The time is always right to do what's right. You can start today doing the right thing." Absolutely. Rhonda writes, Martin Luther King Jr. was such an inspiration to me growing up. His words could not be more needed today. And Justine says, I treat MLK Day as a day on and not a day off by volunteering at our local food bank. Dr. King was all about serving others, and this is my small way of honoring his memory. Love those comments. What about you, Al?
I was going to say, I feel like Dr. King's holiday is the only day where people actually really do go out and make it a day of service. I think for the most part, people kind of kick back, but Dr. King's holiday is a special one to a lot of people, including myself.
Today is a good day to do what's right and be of service. DBL is new every day. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.